talk and announcements and everything. Occasionally I make a mistake, and today I made a mistake. And Gail, would you mind please going and telling Elaine that I'm going to need 10 minutes more, so she can come back at 10, and apologize to her, but I miscalculated. This time of the service is going to be, it's going to be very different moods. I will be talking about Remembrance Day in a few minutes, but there's something that I really, really want to read to you before. That is a completely different mood, but I really want to read it to you. Those of you who were here last week will recall that I spoke of an event that Bethany invited me to attend with her at Lorne Civic Center, which was organized by Natalie, what's her last name? Okay, from the Quebec government. It was all about senior services on the West Island. And I said last week there was some surprise that the priest was attending, but a very warm welcome and a delight. And there was one particular person, those of you who are here will remember me saying that as Bethany and I were leaving, she literally ran up to me, "Father, would you give me your blessing?" So this is under the category of tremendous opportunity for the church. Anyway, I received this week, and okay, there's a couple of pieces that I'm going to slightly edit, but I think you'll all get the point, and it's what's after that I really would hope you pay attention to. It's a priest's retirement dinner. So you must understand that when I first opened this and didn't know what it was about, so something gave me a hint. Anyway, a priest was being honored at his retirement dinner after 25 years in the parish. A leading local politician and member of the congregation were chosen to make the presentation and give a little speech at the dinner. However, the politician was delayed, and so the priest decided to say his own few words while they waited. I got the impression, my first impression of the parish, from the first confession I heard here. I thought I'd been assigned to a terrible place. The very first person who entered my confessional told me he had stolen a television set, and when questioned by the police was able to lie his way out of it. He had stolen money from his parents, embezzled from his employer, had something going on with the boss's wife, taken illegal drugs, and given STD to a relative. I was appalled. But as the days went on, I learned that my people were not at all like that. And I had indeed come to a fine parish full of good and loving people. Just as the priest finished his talk, the politician arrived full of apologies of being late. He immediately began to make the presentation and give his talk. I'll never forget the first day our parish priest arrived, said the politician. In fact, I had the honor of being the very first person to go to him for confession. Moral of the story, never, ever, ever be late. So then, here's what's written underneath. Father Lorne, this touches me very much. It was a pleasure getting to meet you. Here's a little joke I read, and I thought you might enjoy it. Why she thought I might enjoy it, I don't know. Let's go with it. Have a nice day. Sincerely, Madeline, and I can't read the last name, Easterkin, Coordinator Meals on Wheels, Volunteers West Island. And then, P.S. Let's hope those seniors. You know, I thought that was spectacular. You know, just absolutely spectacular. It really, truly is a time of opportunity. It really, really is. So I just wanted to read that to you, because it's not just the event, but it's also the follow-up. Now this is going to be a completely different tone. 3 very brief stories. When I was in Mascouche, all those years ago now, over 25 years ago, 30 years I've been there were lovely people. And it's always been my experience, whatever parish you're in, they're lovely people. Some of them were British expats that had come over to Canada after the war. And among the most lovely was a couple, their name were Bridie and Ernie Matthews. Just lovely, lovely people. And they were of a traditional bent. And Mascouche, at that particular time, the parish of Mascouche was of a traditional bent too. And they still had that habit that at Thanksgiving time, the minister got the fruit and vegetables that were used to decorate the church. And Bridie and Ernie had this tradition of making up a basket of vegetables and homemade preserves and just leaving it on the priest's doorstep as a gift. It was just lovely. And I found out, I had to do some digging who had left this food on my doorstep. But when I did, of course, I really wonderful relationship. Years later, Bridie passed away and Ernie was left. And they're very elderly. And one day, quite close to Ernie's death, paid a visit to the house and brought him communion, and he was bedridden by that time. And we started talking, and he was talking about his life. And during the war, he had been declared unfit for service. And that was a regret of his. But he worked on British civil defense. And for the first time in then I guess it was 5 years that I had known him, he told me some things about what it was like. And he told me about how he had lost his faith at one point. And what had happened was the bombs had come over London. And on civil defense, he was on fire duty. And so he was one of the ones who would be there putting out the fires and trying to rescue people and trying to retrieve bodies. On this particular occasion, there was an arm that was obviously under some rubble, and it was a child's arm. And he moved some of the rubble and went to remove, tried to drag the kid out. Very clearly, because he was dead, and all that came out was the arm. And he said that's when he lost his faith in God. How could a God of love allow this? How could a God of love permit this? How could a God of love permit evil in the world? We talked. I listened. I listened. But Ernie was, by the time I got to Mexico, she was a regular parishioner and very much a man of faith. And so he told me that after a long struggle in a lot of years, he came to the realization that it's not God. God gives us free will to use any way we want. And we can choose evil or we can choose good. We can choose to allow evil to exist, or we can choose to oppose evil. And this is engraved in my memory. Ernie, not long before his death, lying in his bed, and he said, the answer is here. The answer is in every human heart. And he came to a place of faith again, realizing that God, in allowing free will, allows us to choose good or evil. But that was his experience. And war has shaken the faith of many people. Another man that I knew, his name was Al, when I was a student. And Al was a lovely man, just a lovely, lovely man. And he was on my advisory committee when I was in seminary. He was one of the ones that I had chosen from St. Mark's Church in Saint Laurent to be on the group that would assess me and evaluate my work and performance and stuff. He was just a tremendous man. And he thought that there were some holes in my education and that he could fill a couple of them, and rightly so, not many areas, in great humility. And he told me about being on the coast of Italy during the Second World War. And he was on a shore battery. And he would be there with the anti-aircraft gun. And they were stationed there. They were intense. And he said, the planes would come over, and they would know what they were going to be doing. They were heading to London, and they would be there with the anti-aircraft, trying to shoot you down. And he said, Lord, what you don't see in war movies is what goes up must come down. So as they would shoot up this metal to try and bring down the planes, sometime later, they'd be standing around, and all of a sudden they hear, sing, sing, as these red-hot bits of metal would come back down to earth. And he said, any one of them hits you, you're done. And so what they used to do, and talk about, denial, they used to go in their tents and play cards while it was coming down, just to distract themselves from what could happen. That was his story of the war. That he knew that at any time, a little piece of jagged metal could go right through. And the way he dealt with that was playing cards. A short time ago, a year ago, did you talk to them again? You got to talk to them again too, okay? Sorry, because I really, really don't want them in until 10 after. Sorry about that. I was doing a funeral here of a man who was one of our regular attenders at the Vallis, and I met one of his war buddies. They were both arty boys. That's artillery, art. And this man who was in his 90s was telling me had done as part of their unit, and how after the invasion of France, the artillery would sort of, it's walking barrage. They would go, they would shoot, trying to both terrorize and kill the enemy, so that it was safer for the Allies to advance. And he was talking about coming on the scene as the artillery would move forward of what they had done. The body parts and pieces of people and the destruction of the enemy, but also of their own troops, is that obviously we hadn't done a good enough job. And this is something he had never done before in his life. And here we were doing the funeral of one of his buddies from the war. And he's telling this unknown priest, just about half his age, these stories that still give him dreams and nightmares at night. I was honored and humbled by all these people, and there are many others who told me their stories of the war during their life. They all have something in common. Whatever one might say, whatever philosophies we might hold, evil needs to be opposed. It cannot be allowed to go unchecked. And we speak of the big wars, and Remembrance Day is about the big wars, but we also must remember that in our own time, there have been genocides, there have been holocausts, and there continue to be, because, like Ernie said, the problem is not with God, the problem is right here. That inside each of us is a darkness that needs to be opposed and pushed back. And there's a light that needs to be grown and shared. And we need to do that as individual Christians, as Christian communities, and as nations, if evil is to be stopped. And now I'd like to show you a video. Following the video, we'll go right into our 2-minute silence, followed by last time. Okay? So.
Son,